Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Stray Dog Wild Gin Cocktail webinar. I am your host, Forty Stamos, and with me is our co-hosts, Ari Kalos and Catherine Copeland.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
The fun and excitement continues through our cocktail webinar series as we bring you interesting and fascinating individuals that are shaking things up in the liquor industry. In tonight's segment, we bring you not just a story, but the journey of a moment in time that became a reality. That moment was the start of a gin, and not just any gin, a gin from Greece. That's right, a gin from Greece. So without any further ado, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our familiar face and special guest, Johnny Livanos, who wears many hats, but tonight we are welcoming him as the founder of Greece's first wild gin. Stray Dog Wild Gin. Johnny, welcome back to our segments.
It's so good to be back here. Hey, everybody.
Hey, Johnny.
What's up?
How's it going?
It's going well. Happy Thursday, right?
Thursday.
Hey, I want to say real quick, Johnny, before we begin, that I saw so many posts about National Dog Day, but yours was the only one that was sincere and real because you actually do actual good work for the dogs. So I just want to commend you on that.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So for those of you who aren't familiar, one of the reasons why we're called Stray Dog is we do give back a little bit to charity. So we give a portion of our profits to animal shelters in Greece. So yeah, yesterday for National Dog Day, we just try to call attention to that. Yeah. And also remind everyone that it's so, dogs are man's best friend, and we have a lot of tools at our disposal and ways to give back to our furry friends. And it was, very exciting. At the beginning of quarantine this year, all the local dog shelters near me had adopted 100% of their dogs or fostered almost all their dogs.
Oh, that's awesome.
Really cool to see. So if you're stuck at home still and need a furry friend, don't forget to go to your local animal shelter. And
Well, Johnny, I already have a furry friend. He's called Fotios Stamos. But that's awesome. Thanks for doing that, and we appreciate it. And like I said, you were the one post that was true to heart. You actually follow through with the stuff you preach. So that's awesome.
I appreciate it. Well, should I get started, guys? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Why don't Johnny? Let's start from take us through the journey of how this all came about.
Sure. So Stray Dog Wild Gin we launched this year, but it was an idea that started a few years ago. I was on a trip to Greece, and I was visiting some friends and some winemakers, and we went on a hike. We were in the mountains of Crete, and on this hike, we had a little glass of tsipuro. We were all drinking tsipuro with us because, of course, we're in Greece. Why not drink as much as we can? And
Right.
As we're walking through a trail, I picked some wild herbs that we kept walking past, like a sage bush, a rosemary bush, and I started putting them in my glass with the tsipuro. An hour later, we're having lunch. We're having lamb, aranaki, a roasted lamb, on the side of this beautiful vineyard. And I went back to my glass with the herbs that were sitting in it, and I had a sip. And I'm like, wow, wait a second. This is so good. I'm having this herbal infused tsipuro. And then I had that light bulb moment. Why is no one making gin in Greece? We have all these beautiful herbs and spices and botanicals that grow literally wildly across the country, everywhere. Why is no one making gin? And I started to do some digging, and ouzo is a very close relative to gin because you're distilling a lot of different herbs and botanicals. So with our history of making fantastic spirits like ouzo and tsipuro, I was wondering why no one was making gin. So fast forward, I started doing some digging, and I was interviewing a variety of distillers and traveling the country, trying to come up with the perfect recipe and find the right partner to work with. And then we settled in with a great distillery in the northern part of Greece with the awesome master distiller, Dimitri Melissanidis. And together we came up with a list of botanicals that I love that showcase the Greek spirit. And we put them together, and we did a bunch of different tests. And then we came up with Stray Dog Wild Gin. And one thing especially about our gin is we use wild botanicals. So we have sage that grows wildly in the mountains, the rosemary, the fennel seed. A lot of our herbs grow wild. So we're using Stray Dog Wild. We're calling it Wild Gin because of the wild herbs. And the stray dogs, if ever you've been to Greece, they're kind of like the neighborhood they're like your neighbor. Like they just live in the village, and they're wild, and they kind of represent the wild flavor profile we're trying to go and go for with our recipe. So here's our bottle, Stray Dog Wild Gin.
I love that label, by the way.
Yeah, me too. I was just going to say that.
To purchase a bottle and ahead of today's class. But when you pour a taste of it, you get the wild flavor really comes out right away. I mean, you taste those herbs. I'm gonna put this here, a little prop here. You taste those wild botanicals right up front. And where so many gins are really beautiful, there's a lot of gins out there that are floral, elegant, and light. We were going to create a flavor profile that was way more robust, full-bodied, and full of a lot of awesome flavors. And basically, my history is in the Greek restaurant business. So I'm a huge fan of Greek flavor, Greek cuisine. And with this gin, we try to basically pack that history, culture, and cuisine in a bottle. So when you pop it open, you get a little smell of Greece right away.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better.
Thank you.
Now, are you the only distillery in Greece making gin?
No,
you said it's not that popular, but
yeah, it's not that popular. When I started the search, I couldn't find really any. But there are a couple other gins on the market right now. Most of them are just in Greece, and there's only one other gin besides ours from Greece in the States. So I think right now there's maybe 2 or 3 other gins in Greece, maybe just 2, I think, besides ours.
But yours is the best, obviously.
Yeah, we're the only wild gin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must be key.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to create a category of one and to kind of go from there to just try to tell our story and showcase something special and unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
How familiar are you guys with gin? I know you guys did a Hendrix class before. Do you want to go over a little gin review or?
Sure. I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whatever you feel is pertinent to the audience.
Yeah, I think not to cut you off. I mean, we have different guests in this segment as we did before, but I think real quickly, it's good to maybe break down and describe what gin is specifically, and then we can make that association with Stray Dog. That's
perfect. Yeah, so I'll go through a little brief history of gin. So what is gin? So the origins of gin come from the Middle Ages, and it comes from Dutch or Holland. And they would call a spirit, it was called Genever, which is the Dutch word for juniper. So when they were drinking Genever, and the Genever still exists today, it was mainly used as a medicinal product to treat different ailments like gout. And they also used it before going into fight. So, I think a lot of like original spirits origins come from these crazy stories of either medicine or war in battle.
Is that where liquid courage comes from?
Yeah, exactly. They call it liquid courage. And the Dutch were like an undefeatable army because they were all going into battle drunk and I don't even know, high off juniper. And soon it became popular throughout Europe, and especially in England, not too far from Holland. So in England, in the 17th and 18th century, it was believed that it became so popular that almost 50% of households in London were making their own gin. And that's where the term bathtub gin comes from. And there's so many things in British history that they did to popularize, they used to popularize different things like IPAs that come from England, gin, a lot of different other things. But then it was the British Navy that they would use gin as a way to mask the flavor of quinine, which was a malaria medication that they would take to prevent scurvy and other illnesses while on, or prevent malaria while on the boat. So quinine is also the main ingredient in tonic. So basically by mixing gin with their quinine or the tonic, that's how the birth of the gin and tonic came to be. And of course, as the British Navy kind of conquered the world, they brought gin along with them, and that's kind of was how gin got its popularity throughout Europe and North America, and basically is now one of the most popular spirits in the world today. So what makes gin gin? A lot of people always ask, what makes gin unique? What makes gin gin? And the main differentiating ingredient is, of course, the juniper. So juniper is a berry that comes from the juniper tree. The juniper berries comes from the juniper tree. It's kind of like a pine tree. And they grow all over, kind of in cooler climate areas and mountainous regions. And juniper is basically the main and almost only ingredient that needs to be in gin to be considered gin. So you add a bunch of botanicals, including juniper, to a neutral spirit. You can make it with neutral grain spirits, or in Stray Dog's case, we use a spirit derived from molasses, completely derived from agricultural products. And then you distill them with different botanicals. So commonly used gins are, commonly used botanicals and other gins are like chamomile, cinnamon, coriander, angelica root. There's really no rules, rhyme, or reason. Just basically you want a medley of herbs that complements the juniper and creates a nice, balanced, and flavorful drink. Now, what's really unique about craft gins today is that they are starting to use botanicals and herbs that are representative of where the product is distilled. And that was one of the inspirations for me with creating Stray Dog, where, you know, there's gins out there like, let's say Roku gin is an awesome gin from Japan. They use like green tea and different herbs that grow all over Japan. And then you have Botanist gin, which is an awesome gin from the island in Islay in Scotland, where they're also using forage botanicals from there. So that was a kind of a light bulb moment for me. Like, what about Greece? We have so many awesome botanicals. I'd love to showcase those as much as I can. So in Stray Dog, we are using awesome botanicals that are wild and grown throughout Greece. So sage is our main unique botanical, so wild mountain sage, or in Greek you call it foskomilo, and it's a really popular herb to drink at the end of a dinner, end of a meal. My grandma makes it almost every night after dinner. She just boils it, and it's really delicious. It's soothing, and it helps with digestion. And then we use Mustika, which is a resin that comes from the island of Chios, which is a really unique Greek product. It's a pine resin product. Then we also have rosemary, which is just, you know, grows everywhere. Bay leaf, cardamom, fennel seed, and fennel seed is one of the main botanicals used in a lot of Greek spirits like ouzo, gives it that slight anise flavor. What else do we have in there? Fresh orange and citrus, fresh orange and lemon peel. So basically ingredients that you would see used in Greek dishes, Greek cuisine, and as well as in Greek spirits too. So that's basically kind of the gin overview, Gin 101, and a little bit about our story and our botanicals. And then in a little bit, I'm going to teach you guys how to make two of my favorite cocktails. So a little cocktail demonstration. Maybe before we go into the cocktails, I'll answer some of these questions that we have here. So Anastasia, she asked, is wild different from organic? And yes, wild is different. So basically organic, to be considered organic, you just have to not use pesticides when you're producing a product. So organic means produced without pesticides. So you could farm something and it can still be organic. By calling it wild, it literally means it's foraged from the field. So it's not something that is farmed. They're herbs that are basically picked and hand-picked on the countryside, just in, you know, an open field, open land. And if you've ever been to Greece, you might go to these little villages and you'll see like the yayas or these older people sitting at the side of the street, and they'll have baskets of herbs or baskets of fruit that they picked to that morning. They might have picked them from the side of the road, or in our case, the sage comes from Mount Olympus, off the mountains. So, you know, there's all these herbs grow wildly. So there are, I mean, they're technically organic because no one's really controlling them. They're kind of growing free, but they showcase that like the flavor of the land, which is what we think is super, super cool. And then Maria asked, is there a percentage of juniper that needs to be in gin? By law, I don't think there is a particular percentage, but in our case, and in the case of most gins, it's a lot of juniper in relationship to the other herbs. So in Stray Dog's case, I don't have, the exact number is escaping me, but it's about, I'd say about, by weight in terms of the botanicals, it's like 80% juniper and then 20% everything else. Oh. So juniper is really what gives it like that really main flavor. But also what's kind of cool what's special in our case is that the other herbs that we use that are the Greek herbs are so potent, they're so pungent, they're so rich that you don't want to use that much or else you use too much. So, you know, juniper is more of like a fresh berry, so it doesn't have as much concentration as flavor as, let's say, dried sage, where a little bit goes a long way. And we had to tweak our recipe a lot because at first it was like way too strong with the sage and some of the botanicals. we didn't want to. We were like, okay, this smells like a Greek pantry. We need to like keep that flavor, but tone it down a little. Yeah.
I have a quick note about that too, actually. So I come from a distillery background most recently, and we started to make a gin prior to, things getting rearranged with COVID.
Yeah.
And I was asking the distiller, how many juniper berries need to be involved, the percentage, this exact question. And he said when he looked it up in the guidelines, it was 1 juniper berry. That's all it takes technically to be a gin. Obviously, like you said, I don't think you'll ever find a gin where it's, only 1 juniper berry in it. But I believe, as far as I've been told, it's 1 juniper berry and you can call it gin.
Yeah, I think that's what's cool about gin is that it's the rules and regulations are pretty loose. So it allows the distillers to really be creative and really do what they think is right. And basically juniper needs to be the dominant flavor, and it should be the most by weight, like the biggest, the number 1 ingredient. But as a distiller, you have free reign to kind of create something special that you think represents what you are trying to create, represent your creativity and showcase whatever your goal is in creating. In our case, our goal was to create a gin that showcases the wild essence of Greece. And, I go to Greece almost every year, and like, it's a pretty wild country. It's so fun and it's so raw. And like, we wanted to capture that rawness in the bottle. And that's what we tried to achieve. And hopefully everyone agrees. And maybe you can't go to Greece this year, but by having a sip, you can get that much closer.
Absolutely.
Grease in a glass.
Exactly. Grease in a glass, grease in a bottle. So I have 2 cocktails we're going to make today. Should we jump right into it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Both of you are on mute if he's trying to talk.
I said yes. Let's get going because I'm getting thirsty.
All right, cool. So if you're thirsty, both drinks are going to be refreshing. But the first drink I wanted to make is something that is extremely easy to make at home. Anybody can make this, and I love to just make it because it's so easy. And I think at home you want to make easy drinks. And the gin and tonic. All right, who hasn't had a gin and tonic here? I'm pretty sure everyone here has had a gin and tonic before. But a gin and tonic is one of my favorite cocktails. And my wife is from Spain. And in Spain, they took the gin and tonic to the next level. And they call it gin tonic. And I think in Greek, they call it almost the same thing. It's gin tonic. They don't pronounce their G's. It's a Z. So basically in Spain and in other parts of the world, a gin and tonic is a way to kind of take a gin, take a tonic, and do something special to marry them together in a really unique and fun way. So I'm going to show you the Spanish way to make a gin and tonic, which basically is just being as elaborate as possible with all the ingredients to showcase both the tonic, the gin, and the botanicals that you had, and kind of also tell the story. So I'm going to switch my camera over to my other one. One moment. Ooh. All right. So first things first, how do we make a Spanish gin and tonic? Well, first thing we're going to do is get a really nice glass. All right, that's one of the most important things with the Spanish gin and tonic, or even agree. Let's call it the Greek Spanish gin and tonic, or just the Mediterranean gin and tonic. I don't know. So you want to have a nice glass, and in Spain they use like goblets, giant glasses to showcase all the botanicals. Because if you're using like a regular highball glass, the herbs aren't going to be as pronounced. Like think about when you drink wine, you have a very wide glass so that the herbs could come up and enter your nose. So we kind of want to do the same thing here. So I'm going to start with a nice ice cube inside my glass. Excuse me, as I fill this up. I'm gonna get a better glass.
We didn't see him touch it with his hands.
It was just one big cube, though. It's fine.
Yeah, my big cube. It's like.
I know. You gotta chisel it off a little bit.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna do that. There we go.
There you go.
All right, I'm gonna put a second one in there, just to make it extra special. You can twirl it around. Oh, I lost my bar spoon.
What, sing a song while he's gone.
Oh, he's back.
Oh,
right.
Darn.
So get your glass with the ice. That's gonna be the first step. And the second step is going to be the pour inside the gin. All right, so I have my bottle here of Stray Dog. I'm gonna open this guy up, and we're gonna put 2 ounces of gin inside of our cocktail. This is an important bar tool that I think any home bartender needs to have. It's called a jigger. It's an important tool to measure drinks. So for those of you who are new to home bartending or just getting started, this is a very important tool and something that everyone should use. Basically, because if you're making a drink and following a recipe, you want it to be consistent, right? If you're baking a loaf of bread at home, you're going to use a measuring glass. And it's important to think of a cocktail the same, because a cocktail is all about balance. You're balancing the strength of the alcohol with sweetness, acidity, and bitterness. So if you're not an experienced bartender, it's not so easy to just eyeball things. So definitely recommend using a jigger. So the top side is 2 ounces, the bottom is 1. And we're gonna fill it up all the way to the top to do our 2 ounces of gin. All right, I'm gonna pour that right over the top. Next, you're gonna grab a tonic, a tonic water. I have a couple tonics here that I love. This is a really cool brand from Greece called 3 Cents Tonic. So it's kind of hard to find right now in Massachusetts. Hopefully me and Foti can work on that, make it easier for you all.
Definitely.
This is a cool tonic that comes from Greece. But one tonic I really love that's very easy to find, and if you don't have it, definitely I recommend trying this with Stray Dog, is a Fever Tree Mediterranean tonic. So it's a tonic that uses a lot of different Mediterranean herbs. So now we have a Mediterranean gin, right? A gin from Greece with Greek herbs, and a tonic that's going to amplify those flavors. And I'm so unprepared. I forgot my bottle opener. Give me, Aris, sing a little bit more while I get my bottle opener.
Oh, now Ari, you're up.
No, it's not me. It's Foti. He has the deep, smooth voice. But it's also full of a glass of something, as usual.
Well, it's called liquid courage, as we learned.
Yeah, I'm here. So now that you have the gin in the glass, I like to use a whole bottle, personally, for me. I think, having a good amount of tonic inside the gin and tonic, it gives it a refreshing quality, because gin can be pretty strong. You kind of want to balance it out. So if you have these small bottles, this is about 6 ounces. I'd say about 2 ounces of gin to 6 ounces of tonic is a pretty good mixture. And you want to pour it right down the side of the glass. This just keeps the carbonation intact. Also, if you keep your tonic in the fridge, it's going to stay carbonated longer. That's one thing to kind of keep in mind. You want it to be refreshing and carbonated and bubbly. All right, so now we have it in there. My wife always tells me this: you don't want to stir it so much, because then you'll lose a lot of the bubbles. You're going to lose a lot of the bubbles and the carbonation. So you just want to give it just one turn. Now the whole drink's incorporated and mixed. All right, so that's the main part. But now is the fun part for me. One of the things I love about a Spanish gin and tonic is playing with the botanicals. So you want to make this look pretty, but you also want to showcase, some of the ingredients you have in the glass. So I selected a few botanicals that I love, and at some of the restaurants we work with, like Lucia, where I'm at right now, they have a gin and tonic on the menu where you could build your own and put all your different ingredients. And it's very fun to just mix it up. And as the botanicals sit inside the gin and tonic, they start to infuse. So the drink will actually change a little bit over time. So I always love to have a piece of fruit. I think that's very important, right? Either a lime, a lemon, but in my case, I love the orange peel because, Stray Dog has orange citrus inside of there. It gives it some really nice color. Then what else? I have some juniper berries. You could throw some juniper berries inside there to kind of accentuate that flavor of the juniper. I have some cardamom pods. I'm going to put a couple of those inside there. And then even some pink peppercorn just to brighten it up. Give it a little bit of spice. And last but not least, some fresh herbs gives it the big brightness. I'm going to grab some right now.
Ooh.
Like you're distilling your own cocktail with the herbs in it.
As you go.
Salad in a glass.
The one thing I love is mint in a gin and tonic. You could also use sage if you want to accentuate the sage in our drink. But I'm going to switch my cameras now so I can cheers you guys. So basically, that is a Spanish-style Mediterranean gin and tonic. Can you see me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you all. And basically, it's so easy to make it. It took me a minute because I was unprepared and had my ingredients scattered all over the place. But you can make this so fast at home. And if you're making drinks for your friends, this is such an easy way to make an awesome cocktail that looks super festive, super creative, and it's basically just 2 ingredients with a bunch of different botanicals. So with that drink, I just want to say yamas, which means spirits in Greece. So yamas, everyone.
Yamas.
It looks so good.
So refreshing. And it's cool, as it sits, those botanicals really start to come and add extra flavor to the drink. I love the cardamom. Cardamom is a really cool botanical. It makes it, almost gives it a little bit of this brighter freshness to it, especially with the mint on top. Instead of just a classic gin and tonic, I have a whole different experience. It really does feel like you're kind of entering the Mediterranean.
So
Yeah, I've
Johnny,
never seen a gin and tonic with the actual herbs like that in it.
Yeah.
Johnny, what nights do you bartend at Lucia?
Right now, not too much, but the bartenders here know how to make it very, very good.
When we're back to the new normal, we'll be there.
So the Mediterranean tonics are really, really good. Like, you could find the 3 cents a gin and tonic, or the Fever Tree Mediterranean tonic. I think Q Tonic also makes a Mediterranean tonic. Definitely one to keep in mind as you're playing and experimenting with gin and tonics at home.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, cool. Jessica has a question. Is this available in Washington, D.C.? Yes, it is. We are in D.C., Maryland, and Delaware.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good for me to know. I mean, I get all my stuff from Foti anyway, but if I need to run out, it's awesome.
Yeah, we're in a couple stores in DC. And if you want to look where to find us, you could go on to straydoggin.com/buy, and we have a list of all the stores and the restaurants that carry our product.
Awesome.
You can buy it online too.
I'll list that when we post this as a video and podcast as well.
Also, Urban Wine Club does ship gin all over the country to about 13 or 14 states, I believe. So, Foti does a great job shipping it out as fast as he can to get the gin to your door ASAP. All right, we're ready for our drink number 2?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, so the next drink I wanted to make is one of my own personal creations. It is a play on the West Side cocktail, and I call it the Far West Side. Basically, this is one of the opening cocktails I put on the menu at Lucia, on my family's restaurant here in Manhattan. And we're located on the far west side of Manhattan, all the way on 11th Avenue. So we're west New York. And basically, I wanted to take a play on the West Side cocktail, which is gin, mint, and cucumbers. And what we did here was we took those same ingredients and we added, the West Side is just gin and mint. And we added a cucumber and Mustika to Greekify it for the Far West Side. So for this drink, I'm gonna switch cameras again, and I'll make it as I explain it for you. Just give me one moment as I switch the camera view. Alrighty. So I have my cocktail shaker. So definitely an important tool to have as you're home bartending. You could use a mixing tin, a shaker for lots of different things. You could stir it in the top side, but basically any drink that has juice, you're gonna want to shake it. And we could talk a little bit about cocktail basics later if people have questions. But we'll go ahead and start making this drink. So first we're gonna do is pour in our juices. So with this drink, you could either do muddled cucumbers or use cucumber juice. I really love using cucumber juice because I love the color it gets. It gives this drink a bright green color. It gives the drink a really bright green color. I leave the skin on. Make sure you wash them, and I put it through like one of those juicers. Or if you don't have a juicer at home, take about 3 slices of cucumber and muddle them in the bottom of the tin. That would be the first thing to do, is muddle it. But I'm going to use my juice because I really love the greenness of this. We're going to take about 3/4 of an ounce of cucumber juice, or 3 slices of cucumber. Then we're going to use some freshly squeezed lemon juice, 3/4 of an ounce. And for those of you who also don't have a juicer at home, that's about 1/2 of a lemon, like a nice size lemon, about 1/2. But again, we talked about balance earlier. So having a jigger is very, very important and allows you to make these really nice balanced drinks. Then this is simple syrup. I use 1/2 ounce of simple syrup in this cocktail. Gives it a little bit of sweetness to kind of balance out the acidity and all the other ingredients we're using. And again, simple syrup is another basic ingredient you need to have in your home bar. It's just equal parts sugar and water. Then we're going to take a few sprigs of mint. So about 3 or 4 pieces of mint. You can just put it right into the tin. We don't need to muddle the mint because when we shake it, it's going to basically do the muddling for us. Next, we're going to use some Mustika liqueur. The one I'm using today is a brand called Verino Mustika, which comes from the Peloponnese of Greece. I know Foti carries a few Mustikas at his store, so definitely a really cool ingredient to use. It's basically a sweet spirit, traditional in Greece, that is distilled with mastic resin or mastika resin, which is a very unique product. It's basically like the original chewing gum, and they make it as an after-dinner drink or a digestive liqueur. And we're using 3/4 of an ounce of that. Then, last but not least, we're gonna put 1.5 ounces of gin in the cocktail. So one reason why I put the juices first instead of the spirits, let's say you make a mistake and you have to throw the drink out and start over, at least it's just juice that you're throwing out. So you put the expensive stuff in at the end so you don't have to worry about wasting too much of it. All right, so now we have all of our ingredients there in the bottom of the tin. Now we're gonna fill it up with ice. So I like to fill it up always to the top when I'm shaking a cocktail. Basically, by filling it up to the top, I know that I'm putting in the exact same amount of ice every single time I make the drink. And that's a pretty underrated factor here in making a cocktail, because you want your drinks to be consistent and taste the same, just as good every time you make it. All right, so now we're going to shake the cocktail. I'm gonna change my camera so you can see me with my really cool shake in just 1 second.
I like the idea of cucumber juice instead of the slices.
Yeah, the cucumber juice is like it's such a good. I love using the cucumber juice. I think I did it out of necessity for speed, because it's muddling a drink every cocktail. It takes a long time, but
Yeah.
the juice once I did the juice and I saw that bright green color, I was like, wait, this changes the whole drink. So now I love using the juice strictly. All right, so
Yeah,
once
I'm excited to see the color.
in the tin, you're gonna want to smack the top shut, or you can kind of bang it against the counter if you don't have a nice counter, and you're gonna give it a shake. And when you're shaking a cocktail, the goal is to have the ice hit all 4 sides of the tin to really get a really nice aeration, incorporate all the ingredients, chill it down, but also get that really nice texture by incorporating air into the drink. So I'm gonna shake this for about 10 to 15 seconds. Do a little Greek dance while I do it.
Greek Tom Cruise.
You look like Foti when he dances.
Yeah, Foti dances like that without a shaker tin.
That's like an aerobic exercise right there.
There you go. So about 10 to 15 seconds, or I kind of shake it until the tin starts to get frosty.
Yeah.
And that's how you know it should be pretty much done. All right, now you're gonna strain it out into I like to use a martini glass. So this is the glass I use. I'm gonna lower the screen a little bit. Now, if you're using mint inside the cocktail and fresh cucumbers, it's good to use a double strainer. This captures all the little bits and pieces, so you don't have all this little green bits in your teeth. It's not super crucial. If you don't have it, don't worry. But at restaurants and cocktail bars, you'll often see them use a tool like this. So this is called double straining the drink.
Ooh, look at that.
Yeah, that looks good.
You can see how bright green it is from using the cucumber.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then for garnish, you could use a slice of cucumber. I'm going to slice one here for us. Well, one of my favorite cool tricks I've learned is I've been peeling slices of cucumbers, and I put them in the freezer, and they freeze into these little frozen cucumber snakes. And this is one of the coolest cocktail garnishes, because it's basically a cucumber ice cube that makes your drink look so cool, and it keeps the drink colder and adds to the whole cucumber flavor. So that's called the Far West Side. I'll make sure I'll type the recipe in the chat box to make sure you all have it, because it's something really easy to make at home. And
that looks so good.
Oh my God.
It's so refreshing. It's so good. It's one of those drinks that it showcases the gin extremely well, but you can still taste the mastika. You could taste the cucumber and the mint. You can taste all the ingredients, but they work so well together. They're very complementary flavors.
Go ahead, Catherine.
I was just going to say, I mean, the first time, like years ago when I had gin with a cucumber instead of a lime, I just remember it was such a game changer, but this is bringing it to a whole new level. And now that is my favorite garnish I think I have ever seen. I am definitely doing that at home.
Yeah. I mean, cucumbers are a if you've been to Greece, it's one of the main ingredients you have in every salad, a lot of different dishes. Sometimes we'll just have it on the table like a breadstick. You'll have cucumber sticks.
Yeah.
My grandma, she still does this today. If we're hungry, she'll like slice a cucumber and put salt and olive oil on it, and that's like our snack.
That's
Oh, I love that stuff.
Cucumbers. But especially with gin, and our gin especially, it's a complement. It's a flavor that complements gin very, very well. Because cucumbers are refreshing. There's something refreshing about it. There's also a flavor that's a little bit reminiscent to like watermelons. Like to me, cucumbers taste like summer. It's a summer vegetable, but it's not a vegetable-y vegetable. It's a vegetable that is very refreshing and goes well with a lot of different ingredients, a lot of different cocktails. So definitely really good drink.
And I want to commend you, Johnny, once again, because I've done a lot of these webinars with a lot of different people. That last drink really, really was I'm like craving it right now.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely been the best-selling cocktail here since we've opened because it's like dangerously refreshing. And since Stray Dog launched, this drink is going to help make Stray Dog a top-selling cocktail.
Absolutely.
Johnny, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you seen an uptick in consumption of gin or requests for gin? Are drinkers or guests now getting into gin more than before?
Totally, definitely. I think a big, with consumers, there's been a big push towards more flavor, where let's say maybe 10, 15 years ago, there's a push towards less flavor. And think about how the most popular beer was Bud Light and how people mainly drink vodka, or people weren't drinking espresso. You were drinking kind of iced coffee with a lot of milk and sugar. I feel like people kind of went from having less flavor, and now over the past 10 years, 5 years, even more in the last couple of years, people want more flavor. So in terms of beer, I think IPAs are becoming more popular than the light lagers. People like to taste the hops. They like to taste all the different ingredients. Tequila and mezcal are becoming more popular. People like to have more flavor in their mouth. They want to taste more things. And what's cool about gin is that it's a clear spirit. So for people who like vodka, they like clear spirits because they're a little bit lighter, let's say. Gin has that same essence of vodka, but then with all this flavor and a story packed into it. So I think people are definitely looking more towards gin, definitely becoming more popular. And in terms of like spirits growth, the gin is one of the fastest growing categories right now. And it's funny, when we opened Lucia, this cocktail was with vodka. It was a vodka cocktail. And then, because I was like, oh, vodka sells better than gin. I'm not going to put gin in this drink. And then I'm like, you know what? People like gin now. And I gave everyone the option. On the menu, it said vodka or gin. And once I did that, gin was selling more than the vodka. And then at that point, then we just said, vodka, gin or vodka if you want. So we make this drink with vodka. It tastes great with vodka as well. But the gin tells a story. It gives it much more flavor. And it's been really great to see how more people are becoming more adventurous. They want to try more things. They're looking to taste different cocktails, taste different ingredients. And then gin is a way to kind of transport people either to a different country, a different region. And it's one ingredient that has hundreds of different styles and different tastes. That by changing up the gin, it makes it a whole different drink. So I think, people are definitely looking to try more gins. And there's so many gins out there that it gives you like a lot of options too.
And what about the classic gin martini? Do you see that coming back as far as requests?
Totally. Yeah, I think a lot of people are loving the classic gin martini with a couple olives. I've been seeing a lot more gin martinis, just a lemon twist. Again, because gin is such a unique ingredient. A martini is a great way to showcase the flavor of the gin because it's so simple, such a simple cocktail. So definitely seeing a lot more gin martinis. But I think a lot more gin and tonics too. I think in addition to people tastes changing, people have been moving away from like super, super strong drinks. I think the martini is always going to be one of the most popular drinks, but I don't see people nowadays having like 4 martinis anymore. Where like, I feel like when I was bartending even a few years ago, like having like 3 martinis in a night was a normal thing, but like you'd leave completely drunk. So I think people now are looking for more easy to drink cocktails, maybe a little bit lower alcohol, less dangerous than a martini. But yeah, gin martinis are definitely coming back as gin is growing in popularity.
Well, if you haven't seen people drinking 3 or 4 martinis in a night, you haven't hung out with Foti long enough.
Just wait till we come visit you in New York.
I can't wait. Wait for bars to open up inside here. And
Oh, forget it. Yeah. But speaking of martinis, just because you were mentioning it, one of the questions here is, do you drink your gin martini shaken or stirred?
So classically, the way the rules goes is that if a drink has more, if a cocktail is only spirits, meaning there's no juice, it should be stirred. So I like my martinis stirred. I think it's just a little bit more subtle. I like the texture of it better. It's like a cleaner drink. But there's no shame in having it shaken. If you're gonna have it shaken, sometimes I like it shaken if I use olive juice. So if you're having a dirty martini, shaking it is gonna get the olive really to kind of be more incorporated, and you kind of get those little bits of ice on top if it's shaken. So if you really like a really cold martini and you like the bits of ice, ask for it shaken. But if you want something that's a little bit more kind of softer, a little more elegant, a little bit more like kind of more focusing on the gin, ask for it stirred.
Great answer. Great answer.
Thank you. Someone asked, what's the thoughts on keeping gin in the fridge or the freezer? I think it depends on how you're using it. So one thing to note, if you're drinking it straight or on the rocks, keeping it in the freezer is great because this gin actually does really, really well when it's chilled and frozen. It tastes delicious. And drinking it neat is a fantastic experience because it has really nice texture and body, and you can taste all the fantastic botanicals when you have it cold. It's really great. But make sure if you're drinking it from the freezer and you're shaking it in a cocktail, it's going to be a stronger drink because you're using really cold gin. It's not going to dilute the ice or melt the ice as fast as if it was at room temperature. So if you're using frozen gin in a shaken cocktail or even like frozen tequila in a margarita, be mindful that it's not going to dilute the same and you're going to get a stronger cocktail. So one thing to keep in mind, I definitely like to always have a bottle in the freezer when I just want to have it on the rocks. But if I'm going to be mixing it in a cocktail or shaking it, I'll take one from the back bar from room temperature because you're going to shake it with ice anyway, and you don't want to have it like overly cold where it doesn't melt the ice properly, and then you get just a way too strong of a drink.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think anything you drink neat, if you like it neat, definitely keep a bottle in the freezer. It saves you the time from chilling it.
All right. There's another question here. How long can one? Let's see. How long can one keep cucumber juice in the fridge?
Definitely.
I've never even thought about cucumber juice.
Yeah, because we're using cucumber juice in this drink. I think we usually make it every day here at the restaurant. But yeah, I think it could last about, I wouldn't say more than 3 days if you're juicing it fresh. And one thing to note, if you're keeping the skins on like I do, it separates into like 2 layers. So you have all like the green on the bottom and the clear on top. So you don't want to shake it before using it because it's the solids settle. Even right now, it's like starting to settle a little bit. You can see how it's darker on the bottom than on the top, and that's just it's only been sitting here for like 10 minutes. But so I'd say about 2 to 3 days. Cucumbers don't have much sugar, so it's not going to really go ferment like other juices. But sometimes the skin turns like a little bit bitter as it sits longer. So it's not like other juices where it starts to get ferment and gross. It's just like it turns a little bit bitter and weird if it sits too long. So I'd say about 3 days, 3 to 4 days would be fine. And you could always like just juice a little bit at a time. And also cucumber is like a healthy juice if you're just making green juice, healthy juices. There's so much liquid and water in a cucumber that like if you're making just green juices at home, like power juices with like vegetables and spinach, cucumbers could be the really good base for that. Little random side note.
I mean, I drink cucumber juice actually, like here and there. I'm just gonna add some stray dog to it from now on. Exactly. Even though I do it in the morning, so it's kind of weird. But
yeah, it's okay. You could have a go at the
yeah. It's a new mimosa. It's fine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I have
that was my 2 cocktails. What do you guys think? Any thoughts, questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a thought. Yeah. Well, I got really excited when I found out that Mustika was in your gin because the first time that I had Mustika was obviously with these 2. And I remember the first time I actually, tried it straight on its own and really got to smell it. My first thing, I don't know if Foti remembers me saying this, but I was like, this is the gin of liqueurs. Like that was my first thought, that Mustika already was very gin-esque to me. It reminded me of the juniper berries. So when I was looking through your website and I saw that, I got so excited to try it because I just think that pairs so well. So that's just a comment there, no question. Just hats off to you for doing that.
No, it's true. And Mustika, it comes from like a pine tree. Like it's a species of pine or pistachio tree, and juniper comes from a pine tree. So like the fact that they come from like evergreen style types of shrubs or bushes or small trees, they do have similar flavor profiles. So definitely the like juniper and Mustika are complementary ingredients, and even using gin and Mustika liqueur in cocktails, like you could do it. There's so many cocktails that go great with gin and Mustika. They work really, really well together. So yeah, we put a small amount of Mustika in the gin, which really gives that unique flavor. And I think what other thing it does, it gives it a really nice mouthfeel. For those of you who haven't had Mustika before, it has this really luscious, smooth, rich flavor, but also very herbaceous. And with the gin, it kind of gives it that same sort of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. They pair so well together. I love that. And then my other question, I'm just curious, what type of stills do you use? And is there anything specific about like your distillation process that may be different from, you know, the normal gin making process? Or I don't know if you can get into that a bit.
Sure. So yeah, we use traditional copper stills. And the distillery, you know, traditionally makes ouzo and sipuro. So it's the same types of stills that they've been using for like over 100 years. Small, they're only about like 20 or 30 liters per still, and they have 2 small stills where they make continuous batches. They do a lot of small batches. So one batch is only making about like 50 cases or 100 cases of gin. So they're making very small batches. Each still has a small metal basket, which is where they keep the juniper. So basically, as you're distilling all the herbs, so they keep the botanicals in a sachet, basically like a cheesecloth bag that sits inside with the distillate. And it starts to distill and kind of boil together with the alcohol, and the vapors pass through the juniper, and that's what gives you this really kind of subtle, elegant juniper flavor without being overly piney and overly junipery. Like some gins could be really, really strong with the juniper. We have a little bit. We think we have a little bit more of like a balanced juniper flavor profile because we have that basket, which allows a gentle distillation of the botanicals. And someone asked why copper. Copper is a really good conduit to heat, and it's traditionally one of the main metals used in distilling because it heats and cools down very quickly. So it's definitely a clean metal that's traditionally used for distilling all over the world.
Awesome.
Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're really cool. It's like they're like tiny stills. Like you go to these big distilleries and you have these stills that are like, you know,
they're massive.
Over a whole room. Our still, you could like hug it.
I was surprised actually hearing that they were that small. That's awesome.
Yeah, you know, we're working with a small family-owned distillery, and it's a small craft product. So we take a lot of pride in everything that we do. And by focusing on these small batches, we basically have, you know, every little piece of grain or herb or botanical is incorporated and is being touched by the people making it, which gives it really that extra focus and attention and love that goes into every single bottle. So by having these small batches, you have a lot more emphasis on all the ingredients and keeps it a really clean and delicious product.
Yeah, it seems highly specific to the region.
Yeah. Someone asked how many attempts did it take to come up with the final product? That's a good question, and it took a lot. And before we got to making the final product, we did what we called micro distillations of each individual botanical. So what we did was we found a distillery here, a friend of mine in New York, New York Distilling Company. He allowed me to use his test still, and we made little test batches where we basically would take only one botanical at a time and distill it by itself. So like we took the juniper, we made a liquid with just juniper. It was kind of like a mad scientist chemistry day. Then we took the sage and we distilled just the sage. And then we took just the sage, and then we took just the rosemary, and then we took just the bay leaf, and we had them all separate, and then we mixed them in little doses together. to kind of finalize which botanicals we wanted to use, what we thought would be good. And then after we had the ingredients we liked, we probably made, let's say, 7 or 8 like different batches, and the kind of tweaking a little bit of amounts. And then when we found the last final recipe, we even had to tweak that one again. Because once you go from a small like 2-liter still, which we tested it on, to like the 50-liter main still, everything kind of changes again. So now we're after all those little tests and the test batches and the micro distillations, we got.
Did you take a picture at that moment? Because at some point in the future, you want to have that as a memory of like, eureka, this is it right here. We found it.
I have the whole day in the distillery. I have so many pictures just to like, I can't even remember the way it smelled. Like the whole distillery smelled like herbs, and it was an unbelievable aroma that like captured my whole body. I was kind of like stunned by the flavor because it smelled so strong. And if you ever smell herbs just right up, it's a very pleasant smell. When it's distilled, it's not only pleasant, but it's like you're like breathing it in, like you feel it like enter your whole body. And that whole experience was really special because I was like, this is my baby that I'm like inhaling all these fumes.
I have another business idea. You have to cut me in because it's my idea. Patent pending. Essence of stray dog cologne or perfume or whatever.
Or an essential oil.
Yeah.
You can just
aromatherapy.
You don't need it. It's just a cologne in itself.
Yeah.
You just pour it out into little bottles and you can sell it as cologne.
I prefer body lotion.
That's awesome.
I love it. And the fact that you're using molasses too to distill, that smells good in itself when you distill it. So that combined with the botanicals, I can only imagine.
Johnny, we actually have a comment from a viewer in Greece, which is like 2 or 3 in the morning. But she said, this is a great webinar. Johnny, you are very knowledgeable with all your spirits. Your love and enthusiasm is evident. I wish you all the success of Stray Dog Gin. And on that note, can you get Stray Dog in Greece?
We're almost there. Not quite yet. We're just finalizing a few details with the EU and things like that. But hopefully by the end of this year or early next year, it will be distributed in Greece.
Well,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
All right. So are we good? Are we done?
We're good.
Yeah, that was, Johnny, that was another great segment. I mean, you're becoming part of the family here at Urban Wine Club and Greek Wine Club. Oh. And not only that, but we are coming up again. We're having a couple more in the pipeline with you. For the viewers that are watching, we've got two webinars with Johnny, September 10th and September 20th, which is all listed on our websites and our apps. Ari, any more information that we can just quickly plug?
Yeah, well, we're going to plug everything. When we post this video, we're going to plug all this information when we post this podcast. But for everybody listening right now, you could always get in touch with Johnny at hello@Stray Dog Gin. It actually looks like Stray Doggin.
Stray Doggin.
hello@straydoggin.com. And straydoggin.com is his website. You could get his product there. You could find out where it's available there. You could get that product from us at Urban Wine Club.
We have all the cocktail recipes on our website too. So the side is on there, and you could definitely feel free to take a look at some of the drinks that we post up there.
Yeah. Definitely visit his website. Definitely get this gin because it's awesome. It is awesome. I tried it. I always say like, oh yeah, this is great. This is good. No, this is really good.
Thank you.
This is why.
I'm going to share some good news I got today, this morning. Stray Dog Gin received a gold medal in the New York International Spirits Competition today.
Congratulations!
There you go.
Awesome. Good for you.
Very proud of that achievement.
Wow.
We just found out today, so I'll share the news more officially online later.
I have a question, Johnny. Quick question, Johnny.
Oh my gosh.
How many bottles does one have to purchase for you to make an appearance?
In-person appearance?
That's a 5 or 6 figure deal right there.
Buy me a drink and I'll come hang out with you. That's all.
Perfect.
Actually, the funny thing is you can't get rid of Johnny once he shows up. You're like, come on, dude. No, but that's awesome because I said this earlier to Johnny, but once he makes his 9-figure deal, like, he cannot forget the little people. I do not forget the little people.
Well, he's on his way. That's exciting news. Oh my gosh.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
congrats. It sounds like
another
you're
great
having
segment here on the Urban Wine Club and Greek Wine Club as well. We want to thank Johnny for taking time out of his busy schedule. As you can see, you know, he's everywhere. He's in his restaurants. He's on the road. He's flying. Well, not really flying these days, but in particular, you know, he's always got his hands full. And for you to take the time with us, it's always a pleasure.
And I also want to mention one more time that he does donate proceeds to dog shelters in Greece specifically.
Yeah. Greece. It's a special charity. It's a charity actually called Save a Greek Stray.
That's awesome. That's so commendable.
Donate to them. You know, Greece. What's cool about Greece is they do have a lot of stray dogs. It's definitely an issue. But, you know, Greece, they don't believe in keeping animals in cages, and they don't believe in killing. They don't kill. There's no kill shelters in Greece. It's illegal. Okay. So they don't kill the dogs. So, like, instead of killing them, after 6 months, if they can't foster them, they let them go back into the wild where they found them. Wow. Can you hear that? It's a thunderstorm outside.
Yeah.
Sound like an airliner.
Yeah, so that's something I think is really special about what they do in Greece. And Save a Greek Stray, they focus on doing a lot of events to bring awareness to that, and they do a really good job bringing dogs into the home. So definitely a really great, unique shelter.
Well, that's where I want to say, like, his gin is awesome. I've tasted it. I love it. You guys saw everything tonight. It's amazing. But you know what? For no other reason, like, they donate to these dog shelters, and like, that's so commendable. It's near to my heart. It's near to my wife's heart. Like, that, it's awesome. Like, support this, buy this, and we're gonna be hearing a lot of stuff from Johnny. Absolutely, we know this, and we're gonna be seeing him again.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Great hanging out. And have a great weekend. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you so much, Johnny.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time, and have a great week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.